2 people watching. That'll be awesome. Okay. Whew. Howdy. Howdy to our 3 people. Thank you for joining us. Okay,
Hello.
let's get into our spot. Some exercise. I need my glasses. Let's see, where are my glasses? Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. We have to get our exercise on there. Whew. What's the first thing I was going to talk about? Okay. I'm just going to breathe for a second and get my wits about me. I'm hoping everyone can hear us. Can you all hear us? Can you just say yes?
Thumbs
we
up.
can. A thumbs up if you can hear us. We're new to doing lives, and with that comes an inability to know if you can hear us. So thumbs up if you can hear us, please. Okay. Thanks so much for coming and joining. There's a lot of stuff you could be listening to and doing right now. So I commend you for showing up for yourself and just for showing up with us to talk about relationship shit at a time when lots of stuff is going on. So I want to first just honor all the things going on in the collective with a lot of different people that we're not necessarily individually affected by, but energetically speaking, we are all connected. So while we're dancing and having fun, it's part of transmuting. We're not in some sort of obliviousness to what's going on outside of our lives and our home. So we honor people that are suffering and struggling, and if you are worthy, and your life is valuable. So if you're suffering right now, you can reach out to me, and I can connect you to people that can help, or I can help you. So I just want to kind of lay that out first and foremost. And then what else did I want to say before we jump in? Goal here is to educate and entertain and catch my breath at the same time. I think there's a lot of stuff that you can read on relationships and relating, but it's presented in this sort of psychological way or with graphics or in ways that aren't easy to assimilate. So our goal is to educate and entertain at the same time. So without further ado, I was going to talk a little bit about energy and frequencies, unless you wanted to talk for a minute. I was so inspired. Or do you want me to just go?
I think that there's a lot about, if you can find peace and solace in what you're doing and presence, do not feel bad about it. That actually
Peace
helps.
And solace with
what's going on.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
if you can dance, if you can find those moments of joy for yourself where you're fully present in your body and also present with those who you're with, do not feel bad about it, because it actually helps to raise the vibration of others around you.
Totally, and that's our goal.
Yeah, and while we dance here, it's there's a lot. Dancing is one of those things that is such a beautiful, useless, in most of society thing to do, but go out and do it.
Speaking of, since we're talking about society and East versus West, I'll bring in this highlight of, in tribal communities, the shaman, when a sick person would come to a shaman and say, I'm not feeling well. I'm not. What, am I blocking you?
Your fur.
My fur is bothering you. Okay.
Blocking my face. Not
So
that everybody needs to
let's talk about the Eastern indigenous cultures, that when a sick or an unwell person would come into a circle or meet with a shaman, the first question that the shaman would ask was, when the last time was that you cried, or when was the last time that you danced, or when was the last time that you expressed or shared your journey or a story about your life. And that was the determining factor. And so if you take that and translate that into Western culture, we need to express more, and we need to dance more, and we need to share more of our journey with other people. And so with that, I'll talk about energy. Hi, who's my one person that's there? That's awesome. So we're all energy, and the way we change our vibration is by the way we think, feel, and act. And so I want to talk about how we fuck up our frequency first. Do you want to talk about it based on what we shared? Or do you want me to talk about it?
About how we mess up our frequency?
How we fuck up our frequency. I can talk about it first. And then you want to talk about how we raise it?
Sure.
I'm trying to keep my lion's mane on. I know it's hard to take me seriously right now. So how we fuck up our frequency. Junk food, processed food, stress and anxiety related to future talk and also past storytelling where we have charge. Toxic chemicals, daily use, living in the past, electronics exposure, holding on to anger and resentment, negative self-talk, gossiping, criticizing, and judging others, which usually relates to an inability to look at ourselves. And then we wanted to talk about alcohol and drugs. And
I actually have one other thing related to lowering your frequency. Is somebody who has given a good amount of his life to corporate endeavors.
As someone who has.
Yeah, I've done that. And so anytime that, remember, money is energy, and there's no amount of money that will get you in balance. And, I've given up a lot of my energy for money in the past, and it doesn't always end up, like, I'm actually making way less money than I used to about 5-10 years ago, and I'm much happier because my energy is going to things that I think are worthy of my energy.
Purpose and passion driven.
Yes.
And then also just to talk a little bit about the frequency drop that can relate to doing like illicit drugs to numb and distract, and also antidepressants for long-term use. Not against antidepressants for short-term use to get through a difficult time, but that there's something else out there for you to explore with psychedelics or psilocybin or plant medicines, with guidance, shamanic guidance and therapeutic guidance, but explore something besides talk therapy and step into a bit of somatic experiencing, breath work, and body work as it relates to healing from trauma is like recommended. So what raises your frequency? Being conscious of thoughts, being in gratitude, healthy food, staying hydrated, meditating, breath work. And there's this disillusionment about meditation or intimidation around it in breath work, that we somehow have to be doing it 30, 40, 60 minutes a day, and a little bit goes a long way with meditation and breath work. It could literally be when you wake up, it could 5 minutes. And I always say start small, because then you reap the rewards, and then you just want to do it again. It's kind of like exercise or something that you like to do. Once you do it and you feel the way that you feel after, and your intuition kicks in and clarity, you want to do it more. And so if you start small, baby steps. Kindness practice. So we can be kind and we can be loving, but if we're accepting reciprocity or even attachment to outcome, then we're not really embracing the art of kindness and compassion without reciprocation. So
maybe I'll elaborate a little bit on that, is that true kindness really starts with compassion, right? So I actually had a discussion with my brother today about our compassion for our father, who had a different set of, he's a boomer, and had a father who had PTSD from World War II. So, if you look at everybody as somebody who's wounded and who can either rise above their woundings or they can't, and it's okay if they can't.
That might be all that is for them in this incarnation, and so we cannot be attached to the outcome of somebody else's journey to consciousness or awakening. When we do that, again, it's a deflection. We're taking on the collective pain and shadows of other people. Yeah. Something else wanted to add?
Nope. That was good.
And then also, I can't stress this enough, consuming higher frequency level of music and TV and media. And anyway, you can explore what that is. Nature, 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 nature.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a small place where you can start learning how in your area how to grow things.
Yeah, whatever is relevant to your zone.
It's actually really a beautiful thing. It's taken me a few years to understand how things grow, where they grow, what kind of sunlight, what kind of what is the natural rhythm of nature.
And just connect to the ecosystem around you in whatever way that deems fit, even if you're growing one plant outside your apartment. And then relationship support. So everything is moot with trying to raise your frequency or be aware of your low frequency if you're around people that are just completely not on the same path. You need community. Not all low frequencies are bad. What did I say? Without going low, we don't have an opportunity to grow. So I'm not passing judgment on low frequencies or lower energies or lower vibrations. It's part of what we need to get down and see what's there. It's a manifestation. It's a part of our shadow. And our shadow is the parts of us that we've kind of denied. It can be positive or negative. Negative aspects of our shadow. The positive would be creative expression and dancing and emotional expression are all very positive parts of our shadow that could be deeply repressed related to our woundings. And so when we unearth the shadow, our unconsciousness, our subconscious programming, our traumas, it's not all just this dark doom and gloom. With that, we unlock our authenticity, our way to express, and that gives us power and agency, and it just completely changes our worldview, the way we view ourselves and the people in our field. And of course, with that, if you get hippy-dippy, Reiki, crystals, sun exposure, sound, healing, having plants in your house. So we're going to talk about how to fuck up your relationships. And I'm going to pass it to you. And I'm super hot right now, so I'm taking off.
That's how you send it over to Jason.
I'm sending over to him.
Because he's an expert.
And I'm super hot, so I'm taking off some clothes here.
Yeah, so how to mess up a relationship is...
Not wearing anything sexy. It's just some boxers and a sports bra. How do you fuck up relationships?
Yeah, so how do you do it?
How do you do it? First, we talked about subconscious programming and trauma.
Yeah, so a lot of how people relate, whether they're monogamous, non-monogamous, they have a lot of destination in mind. When you have a destination in mind, you can't be in the flow of the relationship and you can't actually be in resonance with it.
So give us an example. What is a destination of an experience that you've had with a woman, either before me in monogamy or after an open relationship? What has been projected on you as a destination that fucked up your connection with them?
Well, I'm actually going to say what my projection was. I think when we got into being open, I thought that there was oh my gosh, there's this big kumbaya type of, what people call kitchen table poly, where everybody comes over and everybody's sharing,
and everyone's conversive and there's no bullshit.
Everybody's making food, they're changing, everybody's coming over and everybody has a meal night, and the kids, and everybody's just kumbaya, supporting one another, right? And that actually I haven't seen happen.
Let's talk about monogamy here.
Okay.
So in monogamy, because that will translate over to open relationships, is what we've seen carry over from open relating into monogamy, the same toxic levels of relating with the destination of trying to mold somebody into something to fulfill some sort of unmet need or something from your childhood or adulthood. So
counsel, you're leading the witness.
I am. Counsel's leading the witness.
So I actually am going to say that most people hide themselves.
Yes.
Going into a relationship. So men usually hide themselves.
Which is a great way to fuck up the vibration that you want to broadcast. Because if you're hiding yourselves, men and women, then you're not showing up holding the frequency of the vibration of the energy you're trying to call in. And so you're actually manipulating yourself, hiding your truth, hiding aspects of your perhaps past of sexual promiscuity, or perhaps the three-way experience that you had where you have shame around it and you show up in relationship, and then you don't want to carry that forward and you want to hide those aspects of yourself, then you're manipulating the energy to call in that which you will not keep because you're not holding that vibration.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll
be right back.
or that you're trying to say, for men, usually men are seeking sexual fulfillment by and large, and women are seeking connection and love. And what happens is there's an exchange, right? And so a lot of men are pretending and like going through all the motions to be loving and connecting, to have sexual intimacy, and women are kind of doing the opposite, where they're teasing with sexual intimacy to get connection and love. And really, that to me is kind of an unpeaceful way in which the masculine and feminine merge.
Mm-hmm. Or don't merge, for that matter.
Don't merge. And so I think the most beautiful thing in a relationship, and you can try this whether you've had experience being open or not, or monogamous or whatever, is just say, here's who I am. Here are the things that really trigger me in relationships. These are the things that are like beautiful in relationships.
Here's what I experienced in the past that hurt me.
And you can actually, if you do that type of real, transparent communication, you actually can find out whether or not you guys can heal each other from those relational wounds. And even if you don't have that kind of communication, you can still heal from each other. And really, I believe, and obviously Jess has said the same thing, is that most of our core woundings are from relational disappointment.
And so how do we heal from those?
And part of those relational disappointments have to do with us. So you have to go out and relate. And the way to relate in a way that is most honoring of you and the other person is just to be authentically you.
And be vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's also a way
Without
to
agendas.
draw out and balance out the masculine, is that when we as women, as goddesses, step into our power, and likewise, the women have issues with showing up and being vulnerable too. So I'm going to be gender neutral here. When we show up in our power with vulnerability and we create that connection by being essentially, I don't want to say larger than life, being the pure essence of who we are, we're creating that safe space for vulnerability, mutuality, and connection. And that is the only place that healing can manifest from, is in safe relationship or in a safe space. So if we don't feel safe to share, and someone doesn't take that first step, then you just have two people who are going to be not in their authentic selves, creating intimacy blocks, and just ultimately pain and suffering and wound projection.
Yeah, and the way to intimacy, the best intimacy, is through deep communication about who you are, your relationship history from a place of neutrality, where you're like, this is what happened. Here's how I've shown up. Here are the things I think I've done poorly with, and also in the moment when you're
show up with your fuck ups.
Yeah, and you're like,
here's how I fucked up this relationship. Here's how I acted with that.
And this is why I'm being so careful with this communication, because I know I've not done this well in the past. So just
sharing is caring in more ways than one.
So I think we're almost 14 past the hour. I think we can do.
We can ask questions.
I love some questions.
Yes, I want to. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask specifically to your situation or personal questions about us, I'd rather not answer questions about us and make it less about us, because we just talked about us for 15 minutes. But we'd love to dive in and counsel or guide anybody with specific questions that we can go back and forth and you can answer. I also wanted, since we have time, to talk a little bit about the masks of the ego. And I have in my highlights an area called ego, to get yourself really consciously aware of the masks that we put on, our lower selves, our low frequency, ego-minded selves put on in order to protect ourselves, in order to avoid pain, in order to avoid vulnerability, in order to create the illusion of safety and permanence. We have a lot of different masks. And so let me see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to to talk a little bit about the masks of the ego in my bra and underwear here. This is a new experience with guiding. So our ego has three various things that we have attachments to. We have mental attachments, thoughts and feelings we keep cycling through for comfort. We have emotional attachments and physical attachments to people and things outside of ourselves. And so when we have those, we attempt to control, we attempt to manipulate. I know you didn't want me to talk about ego masks, but if anyone has any questions, because it's a complex thing, but it brings so much awareness to what we will do in triggered states in order to manipulate and create false hope, certainty, and this ego-minded thing in order to avoid feeling the pain that we need to come up to reconcile.
Do you know,
so,
I actually think the most beneficial thing of actually understanding the masks of the ego is to understand those who are out there who are unconsciously wearing them, and so that you can be compassionate.
Absolutely. Once you understand yourself.
Understand. No, even as you're working on yourself, because actually, as you observe it in others, you're like, ooh,
yes,
like I do that too.
And they don't go away; they always come up. It's like you look at it like, boom, when I feel like I need to possess or control or manipulate or not speak my truth or do anything that's out of integrity and alignment with like being in my power and speaking from a place of absolute truth. Anytime I move to do that, I know that's my low self and my ego. And so having the awareness of our pain body, our trauma, our relational wounds helps us understand we're projecting outward, and just having the general knowledge that we can apply later, which of course knowledge applies, is wisdom.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What should I do to make my twin flame connect with me again? Okay, this is great. I got some information for you. So there's a lot of information about twin flame journeys all over the conscious community. And so I'm not going to disregard or discount, but here's what I know from my own divine wisdom and journey, both of us, and experience with twin flames, is that it's not that we're this soul unit that's been separated and that we have to work in this lifetime to get all this work done to unify. That it's actually analogous for the separation of self and our lights and our darks, and actually the integration of our woundings and what's happened to us, our subconscious programming, with our light side. And so I look at the twin flame journey not as unifying with another soul, but the work that you both do separately in separation actually creates unity and spiritual wholeness within. And so if you have, again, because it's the destination focus with the twin flame, and if we stay hyper focused on that, we can put up with abuse. We can put up with like literally becoming so engulfed and entrenched and entanglement with this other person, to which we will not be in receipt of that which the universe is sending to us. So I think it's very important to look at the twin flame journey more as a unification and a oneness with self, not so much with the other person. That's beautiful. If you can somehow create a relationship that works, that honors each other, and we all know those twin flame journeys,
I've gone
age
back
differentiation,
three
different
times,
constructs,
and she's seen it all.
Cycling, we've cycled with twin flames before, and we've realized like the more that we were hyper focused on the end game of unification with them, the more pain and suffering, and the more we realized as, wow, what is this person bringing up in me? What is this person triggering in me? Because the twin flame is the strengths and weaknesses, the yin and the yang, then push us into our own spiritual wholeness. So that's my guidance for you as far as making your twin flame connect with me again, is surrendering and just focusing on yourself, which is, and again, analogous for what's going on with the quarantine too. We can focus on, how do I make sense of this quarantine and process all this information and all the conspiracies and everything going on, is a diversion from what this moment, meeting yourself in this moment and asking yourself, what is this teaching me right now? And what is my journey here in this moment, versus focusing on something in the external. And I think that might redirect you and get you on a better path of spiritual alignment versus hyper-focused on alignment and connectivity to that twin flame. Okay, yes, unity within oneself, spiritual wholeness within oneself is the twin flame journey. And yes. Okay. Surrendering to the journey is better than trying to physically be together.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's just going to create pain and suffering. We don't want to have pain and suffering. And also, if you're in this space of attachment to outcome and you've believed everything you've read about the twin flame journey and the different stages that you go through, and that union is this red carpet that gets rolled out to you if you just do X, Y, and Z, it's destination focused. And so you might be missing out on another unification with a karmic soulmate or a soulmate or just any journeys, casual, sexual,
and
whatever
also,
journeys that are meant for you to do healing and growth in between. And twin flame journeys really they lean in towards monogamy, which is a whole nother separate ball of wax. So.
And also just be careful, because usually what people look at as this in love twin flame thing is like it's very much chemistry and sexual.
It's an alchemy of new relationship energy.
Yeah. And that stuff
that can feel like unconditional love.
Yeah.
It's a high frequency feeling. The endorphins and the cortisol and things that are releasing when you have that connectivity, it's like you get this full body illumination when you're with your twin flame. And then when you part, it's like mayhem and a shit show, which means it's illuminating things within you that need to be healed.
We have a good question coming up.
All right. Thoughts on being attracted to monogamous single men versus seeking men or couples who identify as poly. So what are our thoughts on being attracted to monogamous? Okay,
we've been doing this a lot.
This is a great question. Thank you for that.
And I'm like, if you could tell us,
give us
you're solo. You
have a partner.
I would say that you're being like you're trying to explore various ways of relating.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk for a couple minutes, and then I'll
give my
guidance. Our guidance is on what do we do when we relate with otherwise monogamous people?
I want to talk from the solo person's point of view. So I think I've noticed when I've related to others, I've related to people who are married poly. Okay, cool, interesting.
Married poly. Okay, so you have a life partner.
Okay. So what we've noticed, and we literally talk about this all the time, is that it's much easier for a woman to date a guy who is like probably like relationship form agnostic, so it doesn't really matter, so long as he. I
have an easier time relating with monogamous men because typically sex is scarce and deep relationship without destination is very scarce. Yep. And so I end up illuminating aspects in the men that I connect to that are like, wow, you're not trying to fit me into some mold, and you'll show up and I'll show up as loving, as caring, as sensual in my body as I would for my life partner or a love. Right. So I think that's something they're not used to with women in casual sex. There's a disconnect, there's a disembodiment in order to relate and connect. And so I have an easier time finding men who will, and then they end up being really good friends, and then they end up on monogamous journeys with women, and then the support.
They're not as attached.
They're not as attached. Yeah, I don't get like this sort of, I call it mono mindset or mono bitch. Where the women will typically be like, oh, openness is awesome, this is super great. And then all of a sudden, once they form attachments with him, they become this more mono mindset, and he can't share his other experiences or even talk about me. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I'm actually, like, I'm entering into a different relationship now where I'm, like, really she has experience being solo poly, coming into a relationship. And we're both looking at each other as like, oh my gosh, I've done that before. Oh my gosh, I understand why that doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. And we're working through it. But what's really interesting, though, also for somebody like you, Laura.
And we need to find out, are her monogamous male journeys, are they becoming attached?
Yeah, that could happen.
Do they have connectivity to you and your partner? Yeah. Does your partner I think it's really important. We've noticed when we develop deeper connections with other people, we really want them to connect to our relationship energy. And I think if we let things get too far ahead beyond casual and there's a deep connection, I think it's really important for them to know that I exist, and that part of the reason why we're able to do this is because we're so close and we've done all this work together, and that they're actually benefiting. They're getting connectivity to him by proxy of the foundational relationship that's done this like significant work on ourselves in order for me to be like, I want to just share. I would not, when you have something beautiful and whole and loving, like, why would you want to keep it all to yourself and possess it? To me, it's like the more I can share, I'm radiating that which I've co-created this foundation together. And so it's hard for people to conceptualize it.
So on the other end of it, we met a couple at a big swinger event, and I met this woman, and she had a lover and her husband, and she's been in contact with me, and she's like, wow, like, my lover is like very monogamous in the way he expresses, and I think we're all susceptible to it.
We also have to have accountability too, because we can actually placate the monogamous behaviors. We've both done that in relationships. We've been with somebody, or we haven't been. Like, we've had within our partnership these sort of somewhat mono journeys with other people that we've allowed to happen and placated, and we've learned so much now not to do that anymore, and to see other people and to encourage them to see other people and do whatever we can to make sure that they're still being open, that they're not somehow caught in this because it is a frequency and it's an energy, and we have a responsibility as open relators to know what's in our highest good and what's in the highest good of the person that we're relating with. And so we have to really know, like, look at them and go, gosh, I really love that they want to spend time with me 2 or 3 days a week, but this is not in my highest good. It's not in my partner's highest good. It's not in their highest good. And we have to be, whoever's the most experienced has to kind of lead the way and set the path of integrity for open relating. And before, when we were first getting into it, it was like willy-nilly. Nobody knew. We were all like in a baseline. And so now as we relate, we really honor the other person's soul path and experience beyond what like our own wants, needs, and desires are, and really come into integrity of like, how can I honor this person's path and their limitations with being open, and so that I don't foster this sort of monogamous sort of energy, because it's not in their best interest. And before we acted a lot more selfish and a lot more out of integrity.
No, we were working for our own core wounds of abandonment and insecurities, both sexual and otherwise. And at some point,
all that stuff comes up, like your sexual, the stuff you might go into it first with thinking. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah, well, what you can do is like what we had to go through multiple rounds of what does this mean, and then also like for me, I'm a very logic-based thing. It's like, what is the role of a husband, wife? And actually, I don't even like those terms anymore.
We don't use the terms husband, wife. I barely like life partner. Yeah. I'd rather just say best friend, lover.
Yeah, we
journey together. We're growth partners.
And we
just vibe.
We share a home and kids and various things, but I think that it takes a while to deprogram in that manner.
Yes, yeah, and that goes back to how well you navigate open relating and kind of traverse everything that comes up is really contingent on how much programming and conditioning you were subjected to. Like, is it religious? Is it just parental influence? Is it societal? Like, where are your blocks? How much woundings do you have? Are they sexual woundings? Are they, there's so much. It's like, it's an uncharted territory until you step in. I don't think, if I would have been asked before going into open relating, what do you think is going to be revealed? I would have been like, I have no fucking clue. Yeah. And of course, Zero. It's the amount of stuff that's come up. And this is why I think, and Sex at Dawn is a great book to read, but I think that open relationships and operating from a place of flow, of no destination, of being open to connection, of not being destination focused, even if it's monogamy you want, like just really being free flowing and honoring somebody's soul path and being surrendered to flow without trying to control how you're going to get this person to be whatever it is. It reveals a lot about the different layers that you need to shed. And it's painful. It's been a painful shedding process of going back and thinking about all of the lies that I've been told by my parents, and the shame around having sex before marriage, and just all of these different programs and things. They're layers, and they were so deep. I had, like, things were coming up inside me. I had no idea were playing a part in how I was relating and the things that I was projecting outward, my insecurities and my fears related to the things that other people said to me that were not loving, that were not building my authenticity, that were not giving me a voice, that were making me small, and altering how I showed up in the world.
There's some good books out there. So, Opening Love by Dr. Anya.
Opening Love.
Great
we
book.
know the writer of the book. She's a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
Opening Love, which is really about ascension and consciousness through open relationship. Yep. And I do truly believe if you are going to be an adept open relator, you cannot avoid the spiritual walk. It's going to go hand in hand. So it's like you're getting great sex, you're having these different connections, you're dealing with your pain, and you're manifesting, you're healing, and you're shedding all of these old programs and templates related to how we're supposed to relate. And monogamy, I don't fault growth producing monogamy. We had it, we got propelled outward. I think everybody has their own level of consciousness, but I personally believe that the monogamy construct, it has limitations. Well, so if you like growth, then you'll like
it's also
being open.
It's very much tied to the patriarchy and like really hardcore religion. But the other book, I would say, that's a whole other topic. But the other book I would say Sex at Dawn, and the third one is the one I'm in the middle of now is Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna, related to
that's a good book for the men. I don't know.
No, wait, hold on. I want to say it because it's related.
Food for the Gods by Terence.
Food of the Gods.
Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna.
Yeah, so
he's brilliant.
Yeah, so he's a psychonaut. He's the guy who went into doing ayahuasca kind of early in the 60s. But the main reason I'm saying this is ecstasy is actually the doorway to divinity. Mm-hmm. And contrary to Western society, there isn't the control of ecstasy, whether it be through plant medicine, sexual exploration, and ritual. Those things actually are the path to divinity. So
we have been trained to limit them. We've been controlled to limit our sexuality,
yes,
our agency, and our power. And if you think, can I go into a little bit
good.
about, I'm going to go a little bit into sexual energy and sacral energy and how it is, I look at it sacred sexual energy exchange, and in our sacral space, which is right above our root chakra. And if we're not engaged in that and we don't open up to the upper chakras, then we're constantly in our root chakra, fear, shame, guilt. And it's not a great frequency to be vibrating at. And so it makes sense that the systems in play wanted to oppress and limit our sacral energy spaces and block it so that we're not able to go up into the more spaces of empowerment, the solar plexus, the space of willpower, our heart chakra, the space of unconditional love, our throat chakra, the place of like authentic truth and speaking, our third eye chakra, which is like intuition and seeing everything that our eyes cannot, and then our crown chakra, which is like the collective consciousness and receiving information that's beyond us, downloaded in. And so if we're existing down in these lower chakras, we will listen to authority, we will obey, we will disconnect ourselves, and we will literally become easily mining for that which wants to take our power away.
Yep.
And so, and this is a good, I want to talk about this, I want to talk a little bit about casual sex, because this is something that I get asked quite a bit.
Yep.
There's a lot that goes on about our sexuality and casual sex, and this somehow, and I've tuned in a lot. I know you don't like when I say spirit or source, but I've tuned in a lot as somebody who went from only having sexual experiences in relationship and being a virgin till 21 and having a sexually dead marriage for 13 years, that I've really done a lot of attunement and understanding and alignment as a conscious person in unconscious spaces about my sexuality and the limitations that the conscious community can put on that. Somehow we are taking on this horrible energy through our womb if we engage in any sort of sex that isn't in like this absolute divine alignment. And so our path has been different. I honor somebody else's path.
That sounds very destination focused.
What?
You have to have it all lined up in order to have
Exactly.
sex.
And I honor somebody who needs to have like all of their chakras lit up before they share energy and take on somebody else's energy.
Like, say it how it is that that's the most fulfilling. But there's also a lot of beautiful sexual experiences that are healing to people that are not that.
And as the two of us, as your witness, if I had that destination and that mindset that I needed to have all my chakras illuminated in order to receive somebody's sexual energy, I would have missed out on tremendous growth and evolution having sex in spaces where I didn't have that full alignment. And I think, so with that, for me, being in flow and feeling my way through allowed tremendous healing to take place that would not have happened had I said, I need to have this full chakra. I need a conscious cock. I need to have somebody who like honors me, and I need to have it be ceremonial and all of these things. I would have missed out. So that is my embodied wisdom in that I don't believe that we need to put a destination that we somehow need some sort of full chakra alignment in order to give our bodies away over to somebody else.
Yeah,
and tried and true, I have illuminated wounds. I have done healing, dealing with lower chakra connections.
Yeah, and I've said it on my Instagram. I said that sexual connection to somebody who I like is like giving them a back rub.
Exactly.
It is. It's a physical merging and an energy exchange in a moment where it's like, that it'll be beneficial for them or for you.
Absolutely. I look at sex as a healing modality. In fact,
what do you say about STDs?
Hold on. I'm going to go that. So we'll answer your question. Yeah. So my favorite analogy for the conscious community that says that how could you like shed it and you do cord cutting and all these energy clearing. I want to say, so what do you do when you go into any space outside of your home, even the collective, shadow and trauma? We need to be adept at clearing our energy and protecting, and in the moment, before, after, during, even if we have a horrible sexual experience, to somehow equate that we are wounded and we're going to own that and be in this victim state versus saying, you know what? This is my look. You can manifest out of every situation. And if you think that having casual sex with someone is going to open you up to dark energies and low frequencies, then you probably should not leave your house. If you are that vulnerable.
Well, but hold on. Yeah. I'll say that you don't want to go willy-nilly.
Oh, yeah. Don't go willy-nilly. Like, if it happens accidentally, don't go have sex with somebody you know is a douche. So most of what we're doing is we have a tribe of people who we're open with, and others that we feel we have enough discernment that we can go in and have sex in a way that's not always conscious in the way that a lot of people say in terms of full alignment. Right. So go in and look at it in a ceremonial way. I mean, you think about it, for those of us that have done plant medicine, you go into an ayahuasca ceremony and you're with 8 people and you are on plant medicine. And you have no idea what wounds these people are carrying in lifetimes and karmic and entities. Yeah. And you're going to go into that sacred space. It's the same way. You can still call in your sacred energy before, during, or after and clear yourself. And I think the minute we deviate from that, we're just giving way too much power. So the question is, what do you say about STDs and chakra alignment? I don't know if those are too intertwined.
Well, I can talk about STDs. I look at, the community we're in, it's very condoms. Mm-hmm. But there's
ask the questions. Yeah, like, when was the last time you had tested?
And being open, it's just no different than being in COVID. Like,
we like to know. Okay, so we use protection. We don't. Fluid bond with anyone outside
We've only gone to the grocery store twice.
Yeah,
it's
in
the
5
same
weeks.
thing.
Yeah.
It's the same.
You want to know where your person's been and who they've been not distanced from, who they've been exposed to.
It's all the same stuff.
And so for us, we use protection, we get tested, and we're not out, like, it's we're not like out willy-nilly with multiple people, even with protection. So I think you just have to use your best discretion.
It's also very much a communication. It's like,
you have to ask.
this is what's going
It's
on.
an awkward.
This is who I am.
I
this is what I
still
do.
find it awkward, and it's taken 4 or 5 connections in the last year after doing this for 5 years to really step in and ask, like, hey, this might happen tonight. When was the last time you were tested, and who have you been with, who you've had protected or unprotected? Because even though I'm using protection, it's still good to know. And then, of course, if we are going to not use it, it's usually with somebody that we're relating to regularly and we know the inner circle. So I think it's really just asking. And it's an uncomfortable question. It pushes us.
It's no different than what we're doing now.
This is an uncomfortable conversation.
But it's COVID. Like, there's a lot of people who say that
everyone has their own.
You shouldn't, like, even though everybody's out getting groceries and doing all these things, like, you should not.
Some are wearing masks, some aren't. Some are wearing condoms, some aren't.
Yeah.
What do you do?
And you're only supposed to see family. Well, what's the difference between family
and tribe
and people who are super important to you? So I think those discussions, actually being open about it is really good. So.
All right. So he said sacred does not necessarily mean perfect.
Hell no.
I think.
Sorry, did I say hell no?
Yeah, you said hell no. Sex does not always need to be sacred.
And nor is it ever always perfect.
Nor is it ever always perfect. It can be primal. It can be instinctual.
Or it can just be
can you come over here and talk, because they're not going to hear you? Thank you. Your sexual experiences, when you're connected to yourself, and this is here, I'm going to close up with our last 5 minutes of this.
She just fully dom me.
Let's say you have an opportunity, you get a booty call, and you maybe have had a drink. Like, let's just deal real here. You had a drink, you get a booty call, and you're like, I'm seeing this girl, I haven't told her about blah, 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 blah. It's like, you just sit for a moment, whether you've had the cocktail or not, or you're high or not, or you're sober or not. Just sit with yourself and go, what is in my highest integrity, and what is in the highest integrity of all these different people that I'm connected to? And bring some consciousness into the way that you are relating. And do it primarily when you're sober. But if you're not, sometimes just having a moment of pause and thinking about what you're doing. And you know what? I really need to tell this girl I'm going to go over for a booty call that, like, kind of really likes me and she wants a relationship with me, that I just, like, had sex with this other chick the other night without a condom or with. And I think, because when we talk about frequencies and vibrations and what we're broadcasting and karma, the more that you speak your truth, the more you're going to avoid, like, karmic implications. And karmic implications are lessons just keep coming back, and they keep fucking nailing you with pain and suffering. And so you want to avoid that by acting in integrity. And the more that you speak your truth, the more that you share your vulnerabilities in that moment to that person you're relating with, just the higher your frequency will be. And the more that what is coming to you, that's seeking you, what you're seeking, what your soul is seeking, will come into you, versus these lessons in pain and suffering.
So
we're going to close up with that.
Yeah, well, Polly ate it just quickly.
Okay.
I would assume that you're going to have safe sex.
How do you make the safer sex conversation fun so it doesn't blow? Can you stop banging on that?
I'm not banging.
You're banging on the side of the thing.
I am not, actually.
Okay, this is a good question. So how do you make safer sex conversation fun so it doesn't blow the spot? Okay, you have to have it before you go over there.
Or not. That's not usually the way it goes. The first time you fuck somebody,
Can
sorry.
you stop banging on the couch?
I'm not banging on
You're banging. Get this out of here.
See,
if you're doing this
is
thing.
It. Okay, so anyway, what you do is you just assume you're having safe sex. And if you want to have sex that is not protecting, you want a fluid bond with them, that's a totally different thing.
Well, let me give an example that I just had recently. And then, okay, we got to end in like 2 minutes. It's an uncomfortable conversation. You have it in text, and you're like, hey, I know the next time I see you, like, we know condoms really suck. And if you're desiring to have it, like, I would love to not use protection. Here is my setup. Here, like, I've been tested. I'm clean, blah, blah, blah. Let's just be open and flow. And so I think if you just bring it up before the moment. It sucks to have it in the moment. I get that. Thank you for sharing. Namaste.
Yeah, and the whole condom thing is a hard thing for guys too, and there's many things that can go into flow that actually make that better. But
have the conversation before.
Yeah,
is our recommendation. And I'm trying to think of what I don't even know how many minutes.
We need to bounce.
Okay. Thank you so much for those of you that showed up, and hopefully that was insightful. And we're going to try to save it so it will post. But we appreciate those of you that came in to show up and ask questions.
And have a beautiful rest of your weekend.
Yes. Stay safe. I hate that word. I know. Don't stay safe. Be present with yourself. Meet yourself in the moment.
Wear a condom. People lie. Totally. I hear you.
Yes. Wear a condom. Yes. People lie. Wear a condom. Yes. Yeah. Herpes is out there. Oh, in fact, let's demystify herpes. 80% of the sex positive population has herpes, and it's not as bad as what people say.
But it's also, I agree. Like,
can you stop banging my chair?
I'm not banging.
Yes, you are. You're going like this every time you talk. You're banging. You're going like this, babe. You're banging my chair.
See, this is the things that I have to deal with. All right. Love you all.
Bye, guys. Just say to a girl you don't want kids. Yeah, and if you don't want kids, like you are an absolute, you probably should get yourself fixed, and don't put that on the woman to do that. You really want to again, it's sovereignty, claim your You don't want kids? Don't put that on the woman. Bye. It says end video. Okay, then where's the look for that? There's nothing anywhere else, babe.